Welcome back to Dark Hours. Tonight I bring you 4 random, very disturbing stories of October you were never meant to hear. Before we begin, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it right now? Let's begin. I inherited my grandmother's apartment building when I was 28. It's a 4-story walk-up in Portland built in 1974, the kind of place that's seen better decades. 12 units, usually around 80% occupied, which keeps the mortgage paid and leaves me a small profit each month. My name's Marcus, and I'd been working a decent job in tech until my grandmother passed. After that, managing the building felt more important than climbing a corporate ladder. The place needed someone who actually cared about it. The building has its regulars, Mrs. Chen in 3B, who's lived there for 23 years, the Rodriguez family in 2A, 3 kids, good people, a rotating cast of younger renters, the kind who sign year-long leases and disappear. Nothing unusual, nothing that required much from me beyond fixing pipes and collecting rent. In March of this year, someone rented Unit 4C. I never met them. The lease was signed electronically through my property manager, Claire. The application was clean. Solid credit, employment verified, references checked out. The name was David Palmer. The rent was paid on time, which was more than I could say for half my tenants. For the first month, I never saw him. The unit was quiet. No complaints. I assumed it was one of those renter situations, someone working nights, keeping to themselves. I was fine with that. In April, I started getting notes. The first one was under my door. It was handwritten on plain white paper, no envelope. Hi Marcus, I noticed the water pressure in Unit 4C is inconsistent, mostly the bathroom sink. Could you take a look? Thanks, David. That was it, professional, polite. I made a note to check it out. When I went up there and used my master key, the place was spotless, the water pressure was fine, no issue. I figured maybe it had been a temporary thing, or maybe he'd fixed it himself. I left a note explaining that I'd checked and couldn't find anything wrong. The next note came 2 weeks later. Marcus, I've noticed you've been entering the apartment. I appreciate you checking on things, but I'd prefer if you'd give me notice before coming in. I'm a private person. Thanks. I hadn't been in there since that first water pressure visit. I'd only been inside once to check, but okay. I sent him a text. David, I'll make sure to text you before any maintenance visits. Sorry about that. He didn't respond, but the rent came through, so I didn't worry about it. Notes kept appearing though, always under my door, always about something odd. Marcus, I think there might be someone in the building at night. I've heard footsteps in the hall around 3 a.m., just a heads up. Marcus, are there other tenants on the 4th floor? I've heard knocking on my door at strange hours, but no one's there when I check. Marcus, I'm concerned about the fire exits. I don't think they're properly maintained. We should discuss this. Each note was written in the same careful handwriting. Each one was specific, detailed, but never quite describing something I could actually verify. When I checked the fire exits, they were fine. When I asked Mrs. Chen if she'd heard footsteps, she said no. When I looked through my lease records, the 4th floor only had David's unit occupied. Units 4A and 4B were empty. Still, he was paying rent. He wasn't causing problems beyond the notes. I figured he was just a paranoid guy, maybe dealing with some anxiety. Older buildings creak and settle. Sounds carry. I started leaving him messages when I needed to enter. David, I'll be coming by on Thursday to check the HVAC filter. Let me know if you need anything. He never responded to these messages, but the notes kept coming. The notes changed in June. Marcus, I know you're checking on me. I can tell when you've been in the apartment. Items are moved slightly. Please stop. I hadn't been in there in months. I responded via text. David, I haven't entered your apartment since April. I only come in when there's a maintenance issue and I notify you first. Is everything okay? No response, but a note appeared 3 days later. I'm serious. Stop coming in. I have cameras. I took that seriously. If he had cameras in his private apartment, fine. That was legal. But the implication that I was entering when I wasn't troubled me. I called Claire, my property manager. Has he reported anything to you? I asked. No, she said. Why? I explained the notes. She was quiet for a moment. Marcus, I'd let this go. He's not breaking his lease. He's paying on time. Some people are just weird. You don't need to engage with it. She was right. I decided to just let it be. I wouldn't go into that apartment unless absolutely necessary. But then Mrs. Chen called me in early July. "Marcus, I want to give notice. I'm moving out." Mrs. Chen had been in that building since before my grandmother bought it. She was the anchor tenant, the one everyone else knew. This was shocking. "Why? What happened?" "It's the new tenant on 4. David. He's been... I don't know how to describe it. Watching, I guess. I've seen him in the hallway late at night, just standing there, watching the doors, or watching down the stairs. A couple times I came home late and he was sitting on the landing just staring at nothing. When he saw me, he went back inside, but..." She trailed off. "I don't feel safe. I'm sorry. I know it's sudden." "Did he ever approach you? Say anything?" "No, that's almost worse. He just watches." She was out by the end of July. I started asking the other tenants, casually, if they'd noticed anything odd. The Rodriguez family said their kids had reported seeing the man in the hallway standing still. One of the younger renters in 2C said she'd come home to find David standing outside her door. When she asked if she could help him, he just walked away without a word. I decided I needed to confront him. I went to Unit 4C on a Saturday afternoon and knocked on the door. No answer. I knocked again. Nothing. I used my master key and went in. The apartment was empty. Not just no one home. Empty. No furniture. No belongings. Nothing. The walls were bare. The kitchen cabinets were open and vacant. The bedroom was completely clear. It was like no one had ever lived there. But the rent had been paid through August. His lease ran until December. I checked the date on my phone to make sure I wasn't confused. July 15th. I'd been collecting his rent for 4 months, but this place looked like it hadn't been touched in years. I called Claire immediately. "Claire, Unit 4C is empty. Completely empty." "What do you mean empty?" "I mean there's nothing in it. No furniture, no personal items, nothing." "But his rent payments came through." "I know." "That's impossible. Let me check the records." She called me back an hour later. "Marcus, the payments are showing in your account, but they're coming from different banks each time. We flagged them at the time. Different payment sources, but they all cleared." "But here's the thing. I looked at the address the payments are coming from. It's the building's address. Unit 4C. The payments are being sent from his apartment." "How is that possible?" "The apartment is empty. I just checked." "I don't know." I went back up that evening with Claire. The apartment was still empty, but this time I looked more carefully. There was no dust. The floors were clean. The walls had faint marks where furniture used to be recently. Like he'd lived here, kept it clean, then vacated it completely. But when? Claire called the police. 2 officers came out, looked around, took our statements. One of them, Officer Tran, asked to see the lease. "David Palmer," she said, reading it. "And the application went through your property manager?" "Yes," I said. She looked at something on her phone. "There's no David Palmer with this social security number on file anywhere. That's a manufactured identity. Either fake documents or..." She paused. "Or he's very good at not existing?" They couldn't find anything criminal. He hadn't stolen anything. He'd paid his rent. The apartment being empty wasn't illegal, but they advised me to change the locks and consider it a loss for the remaining months on the lease. I changed the locks that night. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. No notes, no sounds, no sign of him. I thought it was over. Then I found the pictures. They were in my mailbox. 12 photographs printed on regular photo paper, no envelope. Each one was a picture of the interior of Unit 4C, taken from different angles. Some from the corners, some from the center of the room. Each one was dated. They went back to March, the month David moved in, but the pictures showed the apartment empty, in every single one. No furniture, no belongings, nothing but bare walls and clean floors. In the last photo, there was something different. It was taken from the window of Unit 4C, looking out at the street below, and in the reflection of the glass, barely visible, was a silhouette, a figure standing in the empty apartment, camera in hand, taking a picture of the window. There was a note with the photos. "Marcus, I think you should know the truth about your building. You should check all the other units. You should check carefully. You might find the same thing in each one." I didn't check the other units. I didn't want to know, but I started paying attention, and I noticed things. Mrs. Chen's replacement in 3B, a woman named Jennifer. I've never actually seen her, though I hear her moving around at night. The Rodriguez family moved out in September. When I asked why, they said their kids were scared. I asked of what. They couldn't explain it, just scared. Unit 2A is empty now. I realize I don't actually know when they left. I think it was August, but I'm not certain. Did I get a notice? I don't remember. I've been living alone in the building since October. No tenants, just me and whatever's in the other units. The rent payments for units 3B and 2A are still coming through every month, different banks each time, from addresses I don't recognize. The money deposits, the units remain empty when I check, which I barely do anymore. Last week I found another note under my door. Marcus, the 4th floor is full now. Check whenever you're ready. We've been here the whole time. I haven't checked. I don't plan to. The weird thing is I'm still managing the building, still collecting rent from tenants I can't account for, still living here alone. And every time I go to the basement to check the utilities, I hear footsteps in the hallways above me. Every night around 3 a.m., I hear knocking on doors that don't have anyone behind them. Last night, I heard knocking on my apartment door at 3:04 a.m. I didn't look through the peephole. I didn't answer it. I just lay in bed and listened to the knocking until it stopped. This morning, there was a note under my door. Thank you for letting us stay, Marcus. The building is much more comfortable now with all of us in it. We're not going anywhere. I'm trying to sell the building, but something's wrong with every potential buyer. They tour it once and decide not to make an offer. One buyer said there was something wrong with the place. Another said he felt unwelcome. The last one wouldn't even go past the ground floor. I'm stuck here. I think maybe I always was. Maybe the moment I inherited this place, I became part of it. Maybe David Palmer was just the first one to move in and figure out the arrangement. There's a knocking sound right now from somewhere in the building. It's 2:47 a.m. I think they're settling in for the night. I think I'm settling in too. I take the same train every morning, the 6:47 a.m. from Central Station to Union Square. I've been doing this for 3 years. My name's Riley, and I work as a civil engineer for a firm that pays well enough that I can afford a nice apartment in a neighborhood that requires a 40-minute commute. Worth it, I figured. The train is always packed during morning rush hour, but I've learned the rhythms. Same crowd mostly, same faces rotating in and out, same sounds, the screech of the brakes, the conductor calling out stations, the ambient hum of tired people heading to jobs they tolerate. 3 months ago, something changed. I didn't notice it immediately. It was gradual, the kind of thing that doesn't register until you realize you've been noticing it for a while. It started with the woman in the blue coat. She got on at Meridian Station, which is the 3rd stop. I know this because I'd never seen her before, and then suddenly she was there every morning in the same spot, the middle of the car, standing by the doors, holding the vertical rail with one hand. She always wore the same blue coat, dark blue, wool, well-maintained. She was maybe 50, maybe 60, hard to tell. She never got off. I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean that I would ride the train all the way to Union Square, through 8 more stops, and she'd still be standing there, same hand on the same rail, staring straight ahead at nothing in particular. The first time I noticed this, I assumed I was wrong. Maybe she got off and I didn't see it. Maybe she was getting off at Union Square like everyone else, and I just hadn't noticed her leaving. But then I saw her the next day. Same coat, same position, same blank stare. And the day after that, I started keeping track. Every morning, without exception, she boarded at Meridian. Every morning, without exception, she exited at Union Square. But here's the thing, she never moved. Her feet never left the same spot. Her hand never adjusted on the rail. Her eyes never blinked, or if they did, I never saw it. I mentioned it to Derek, a coworker who takes the same train. We stand together most mornings, talking about work or complaining about the weather. The woman in the blue coat, I said. You ever notice her? He glanced around. Which one? The one by the middle doors. Dark blue coat. She's here every morning. He looked at where I was pointing. His eyes passed right over her. I don't see her. Right there, with her hand on the rail. He looked again. Nope, not seeing it. Maybe you need more coffee. I didn't push it. I figured he just wasn't paying attention. But after that, I started looking at everyone around her, and I noticed that no one looked at her, not once. People would push past her without adjusting their trajectory, like the space where she was standing was automatically cleared. Someone spilled coffee near her shoes, and while everyone reacted to the spill, no one seemed to notice her at all. I tried to talk to her directly one morning. I positioned myself nearby and said, "Excuse me, do you know if this train stops at Harbor Junction?" She didn't turn to look at me, didn't acknowledge that I'd spoken, just kept staring straight ahead, hand on the rail, motionless. I was starting to think I was going crazy. Then I noticed the second one. He was a man, younger, maybe mid-30s, wearing a gray suit. He boarded at Riverside, which is the 5th stop. I only saw him once. He stood in the corner of the car, briefcase in hand, looking directly at me. Not glancing. Looking. Full eye contact, completely still, for the entire ride. When I looked away and then back, he was still looking at me. Same intensity, same blank expression. At Union Square, he got off the train. I watched him walk toward the doors, and I saw him exit onto the platform. But then, about 2 minutes later, when I was getting off myself, I saw him on the platform again. Same gray suit, same briefcase, standing perfectly still by the doors, looking at the train I just exited. I convinced myself I'd misremembered. Different person, same suit. Happens all the time in the city. But then there was the man with the journal. He was older, maybe late 60s, and he wore a brown cardigan and carried a leather journal. He boarded at Meridian with the woman in the blue coat. I remember thinking it was odd that I'd never noticed him before either. He sat in a seat near the back and he opened his journal and he wrote, "For the entire ride." The entire ride. From Meridian all the way to Union Square, 37 minutes, his pen never stopped moving. I watched him for most of the journey, and he never paused, never looked up. His hand just kept moving across the page, page after page. When we reached Union Square, everyone got up to leave. I got up too, but when I looked back, he was still sitting there, pen still moving, writing on blank pages now, or pages I couldn't see from my angle. The train emptied out, completely, and he was still there, still writing. I got nervous. I looked for a conductor or someone who could tell me what was happening. By the time I found someone and we walked back to the car together, he was gone. Empty seat, no journal, nothing. He was just here, I told the conductor. An older man, writing in a journal. He didn't get off. The conductor looked at the seat and then at me. Train's been cleared. Everyone off. But he. Everyone off, sir. Next train in 3 minutes. I got off the train that morning and I sat on the platform for a while. I called my office and told them I was running late. I told them there was a delay on the train. It was a lie. When I came back the next morning, I almost didn't get on the train. I stood on the platform and seriously considered driving my car instead, but that was ridiculous. I was letting some strange commuters freak me out. This was the city. Weird people were normal. But when I got on the train, I counted them. The woman in the blue coat, the man in the gray suit, and 3 new ones I'd somehow never noticed before. A girl in a yellow backpack who couldn't have been more than 20, a man in a construction vest who stared directly ahead with no expression, an elderly woman with a cane who was somehow perfectly balanced in a moving train without holding anything. They were all positioned around the car at regular intervals, like points on a grid, and everyone else avoided them without seeming to notice they were doing it. I watched more carefully that day. I watched people step around invisible boundaries. I watched conversations stop when people got too close to one of them. I watched a man spill his coffee and look directly at the spot where the woman in the blue coat was standing, but look directly through her like she was glass. At Harbor Junction, the station after Union Square, the doors opened and a man got on. Normal-looking guy, maybe mid-50s, carrying a gym bag. He looked tired, like he'd come from an early morning workout. He took a seat near the back of the car and pulled out his phone. 2 seconds later, the girl in the yellow backpack walked over and sat directly next to him, not 1 seat over, right next to him. The man looked up like he was about to say something, and then he just stopped. His expression went blank. He stared straight ahead. He didn't move for the rest of the ride, didn't look at his phone, didn't acknowledge that anyone was sitting next to him. At the next stop, the girl got up and walked to another part of the car. I realized what I was seeing. They were selecting people, testing them somehow. I haven't taken the train in 2 weeks. I've been driving to work, which means I wake up an hour earlier and I sit in traffic, but I can see everything. I can see the roads, I can see the cars around me. I can see what's real and what isn't, or what I think is real. I'm not sure anymore, but this morning I got a notification from my parking app. My car has been in the shop for a week, a transmission issue. I forgot I'd dropped it off. The mechanic said it would take another 2 weeks to fix, so I'm going back on the train tomorrow. I woke up early this morning, earlier than usual, and I took the bus instead, just to avoid the train for one more day, and I saw something that made my stomach go cold. On the side of a building, there was an advertisement, a transit advertisement. It was a poster for the train line, the 6:47 a.m. from Central to Union Square, and in the picture, there were 8 passengers visible. The woman in the blue coat was in the center of the image, perfectly still. The man in the gray suit was in the corner. The girl with the yellow backpack, the construction worker, the old woman with the cane, and 3 others I recognized from my morning rides but had somehow forgotten about completely. And then I looked more carefully at the poster. There was a man in the picture who was looking directly out at the viewer, at me. He was sitting in a seat and his expression was exactly the kind of blank, still look that all the others had. The man in the gym bag, the man from yesterday morning. I looked at the date on the poster. It was old. The style of the print suggested it was from at least 10 years ago, maybe older, faded, weathered. How long had this poster been there? Why had I never noticed it before? I called Derek today and asked him directly. "Do you take the train every day?" I asked. "Yeah, same as you. Why? Do you ever notice anything off about the other passengers?" He was quiet for a moment. "What do you mean, off?" "Like, people who seem wrong, who don't move the way people move, who don't react to things, who are just there." Another pause. "Riley, maybe you should talk to someone, like a professional. You're not sounding great." I hung up on him. "I'm going back on the train tomorrow. My car won't be ready for 2 weeks and I can't keep taking the bus. I have to go back. But I've been thinking about that poster all day, and I've been thinking about the man who got on yesterday morning with the gym bag. I've been thinking about what it means that he was in a poster from 10 years ago. I've been thinking about whether that's possible. I've been thinking about whether he's still getting on that train every morning, selecting new people, testing them, watching them go blank. And I've been thinking about something else. Tomorrow, when I get on the 6:47 a.m., I'm going to look for myself in the reflections of the train windows. I'm going to see if I'm one of them, if I have been one of them, if I got on this train 10 years ago and never actually got off. If that gym bag was mine, I'm going to look very carefully. Because I can't remember what I was doing 10 years ago. I can't remember if I've always had this job, always lived in this apartment, always taken this train. I can't remember the year before this one. I can't remember the month before last month. And I'm pretty sure the woman in the blue coat has been looking at me for the last 3 days, not staring straight ahead, looking at me, waiting. I think tomorrow I'm going to stop avoiding whatever this is. I think tomorrow I'm going to find out what happens when you get on the train and you never get off. I haven't slept properly in 6 days. Every time I close my eyes, I see the room, the desk, the man's face. So I'm writing this down now at 3:47 a.m. because I need someone to know what happened. I need it documented. My name's Casey, and I'm a marketing consultant. Or I was. I don't know what I am anymore. Last Tuesday, I went to a job interview. This might sound ordinary, but it wasn't. I'd been unemployed for 4 months. My last position ended when the company downsized. I'd applied to maybe 100 places, hundreds of resumes sent into the void, ignored or rejected. I was living off savings, watching them deplete, feeling that specific kind of panic that only unemployment can create. So when I got the call on Monday afternoon, I was desperate enough not to ask too many questions. The woman on the phone had a calm voice. She said her name was Patricia from Advent Solutions. She said they'd reviewed my application and they were interested in speaking with me about a senior marketing position. The pay was more than I'd ever made. The role was flexible. She asked if I was available for an interview the next day. Yes, I said immediately. Absolutely. Where? She gave me an address downtown, a building I'd never heard of. She said the interview was at 2 p.m. in room 412. She said to arrive a few minutes early. She said she looked forward to meeting me. I was cautiously optimistic. Maybe my luck was changing. Maybe this was going to work out. I showed up at 1:50 p.m. The building was normal enough, modern, glass and steel. The lobby had a directory, but Advent Solutions wasn't listed. That was odd. I checked the email again to make sure I had the right building. I did. So, I went to the security desk and asked for the 4th floor. The guard barely looked up from his phone. 4th floor's office space. Could be any of a dozen companies. I'm looking for Advent Solutions? He shrugged. Not listed. You sure about the building? I was sure. I'd read it 3 times. So I went to the elevator and pressed 4. The 4th floor was quiet. The hallway stretched in both directions, lined with doors, but no signage, no company names, just door after door, most of them closed. I walked slowly, looking at the numbers. 401, 402, 403, and then 412. The door was unmarked except for the number. I knocked. "Come in," a man's voice said from inside. I opened the door. The room was small, almost uncomfortably small. There was a desk, a chair behind it, a chair in front of it, and nothing else. No windows, no pictures on the walls. The walls were white and blank. Fluorescent lights overhead. And the man. He was sitting behind the desk, watching the door, waiting for me. He looked like he was in his 60s, maybe older, with gray hair and a gray suit. His face was unremarkable, the kind of face you'd forget immediately. But his eyes were different. They were very still, very focused. "Casey," he said. It wasn't a question. "I'm Mr. Venn. Thank you for coming." I sat down. "Thank you for seeing me. I'm excited about this opportunity." "Are you?" he asked. He didn't smile. He just tilted his head slightly. "Why?" "I'm sorry?" "Why are you excited? You don't know anything about this company. You don't know what the job entails. You don't know who I am. Yet you're excited. Why?" I felt uncomfortable immediately. This wasn't like any interview I'd ever had. "Well," I said, "the position sounds interesting, and the compensation." "You need the money," he interrupted. "You've been unemployed for 4 months. You're running out of savings. You're afraid. That's not excitement. That's desperation. There's a difference." I didn't know how to respond to that. How did he know I'd been unemployed for 4 months? That wasn't in my resume. "Your LinkedIn profile," he said, like he'd read my mind. "It's been inactive since February. 4 months ago, that's when you lost your job." He leaned back in his chair. "Or were you fired?" "I was laid off." "Were you? Or were you let go because you weren't good enough?" I stood up. "I don't think this is—" "Sit down," he said calmly, and I sat down. I don't know why. Something about the way he said it made me do it. There was no aggression in his voice, just a statement of fact, and I obeyed it. "I want to ask you some questions," Mr. Venn said, "and I want you to answer honestly. If you lie to me, I'll know. If you hold back, I'll know. And if you do either of those things, this interview ends and you leave and you won't get the job. Do you understand?" "Yes," I said quietly. "Have you ever stolen anything?" "What? Have you ever stolen anything?" "Money, merchandise, someone else's work, credit for something you didn't do. Answer the question." I thought about it. In college, I took office supplies from the library, pens and notepads. I didn't think it was a big deal. "It's theft," he said. "Next question. Have you ever lied on a resume?" "No." "Really? You've never embellished a skill, never stretched a job title, never described a small project as larger than it was?" I hesitated. Maybe I was a little generous with how I described my role in the Peterson campaign. "Generous," he repeated. "That's a nice word for dishonest. Next question. Have you ever looked at someone and felt contempt, looked at them and thought they were inferior to you?" I don't think so. Everyone thinks that about someone. Have you ever thought it?" I thought about it. "Yes, probably." "Who?" "People who weren't as educated as me. People working service jobs. I guess I felt that way." He didn't say anything. He just wrote something down on a notepad I couldn't see, and then he asked another question, and another, and another. The questions kept coming. Some about my past. Did I ever cheat on tests? Did I ever hurt an animal? Did I ever wish harm on someone? Some about my present. Have I ever judged someone by their appearance? Have I ever taken credit falsely? Have I ever felt superior to my peers? Some about things I'd never considered. If you could hurt someone and no one would know, would you? If you had to choose between your survival and someone else's, what would you do? If you could change one decision you've made, what would it be? The room got warmer. Or maybe I just felt like it did. I started to sweat. My leg bounced under the desk. Every question felt personal, intrusive, designed specifically to make me confront things I didn't want to confront. And the worst part was that I was answering them, all of them. I told him about the time I'd sabotaged a coworker's presentation because I was competing for the same promotion. I told him about lying to my family about how much money I had, about judging people constantly, about petty cruelties I'd committed without thinking. I told him about the times I'd known something was wrong and I'd looked away, about the lies I'd told myself to justify my own behavior. He just wrote it all down. After what felt like hours, but was maybe only 40 minutes, he set down his pen. "Thank you for your honesty," he said. "That was the real interview." "So, did I get the job?" I asked. He smiled for the first time. It didn't reach his eyes. "No," he said. "There is no job. There is no Advent Solutions. There is no position." I felt my chest go tight. "What?" "This was an evaluation," he said. "We've been watching you. Several of you, actually. We interview maybe 10 people a week, people in vulnerable positions, people who are desperate. We bring them in here and we ask them to be honest about themselves. Most people fail. They hide. They lie. They present a version of themselves they think we want to see. But you were honest. You told the truth about the worst parts of yourself without prompting." "I don't understand," I said. "What is this?" "An evaluation," he repeated. "You passed. Barely. And now you have a choice." "A choice about what?" "About whether to remember this interview or not." I stared at him. "What does that mean?" "It means," he said slowly, "that what happens next depends on what you decide. You can leave here, and your memory of this interview will be intact. You'll remember me, this room, these questions, all of it. You can tell people about it. You can try to find this building again, this floor, this room. You can try to prove that any of this happened, or ... quote. Or, I said, or you can agree to forget. You can walk out of here and you'll remember having an interview today, but the details will be vague. You won't remember what I look like, or what I asked, or this room. You'll just remember a job interview at a company you can't quite recall, and when you try to remember, it'll slip away like a dream. You won't be able to prove anything happened." "Why would I choose that?" I asked. "Because," he said, "if you choose to remember, if you try to find me or this place again, if you talk about it in a way that gains traction, then we'll have to do something about it. Not you, necessarily, but someone you care about, someone close to you. We can't have people spreading stories about us, so forgetting is safer for everyone." He stood up. He walked to the door and opened it. "You have 30 seconds to decide," he said. "Choose." I sat there, completely paralyzed. Part of me wanted to remember. Part of me wanted evidence. Part of me wanted to know what this was, what he was, what any of it meant. But I thought about my sister, my parents, my friends, and I said, "I want to forget." He nodded. "Good choice." And I can remember leaving. I can remember walking to the elevator. I can remember exiting the building. But I can't remember his face clearly. When I try to picture it, it blurs. I can't remember the specific questions he asked me, even though I can remember the feeling of them, intrusive, personal, cutting. I can't even remember what floor we were on, even though I wrote down 412 in my phone. But here's what I do remember: the feeling of being evaluated, the feeling of being watched by something that knew all my worst truths, the feeling of that room, so small and white and wrong, and the understanding that this thing, whatever it is out there, interviewing people, evaluating them, watching. And the worst part? I got home and I checked my email. There was an email from Patricia at Advent Solutions, sent at 4:47 p.m. today. It said, "Thank you for the interview. We've decided to move forward with another candidate. We'll keep your resume on file for future opportunities." The email was sent at 4:47 p.m. The interview ended at around 3 p.m. I got home at 3:30 p.m. How did she send an email in the future? I'm trying not to think about that. I'm trying not to think about any of this, but I keep opening my email to read it again, and each time I read it, I feel like I'm forgetting something else, something important, and I'm afraid if I forget too much, I'll stop being myself. Last night I dreamed that I was sitting in that white room again, and Mr. Venn was telling me that I'd failed the reevaluation, that I'd spent too much time trying to remember, that I'd become a security risk. In the dream, he smiled and said, "Welcome to Advent Solutions." When I woke up, I couldn't remember if it had been a dream. I work at a mid-sized marketing firm downtown. Nothing glamorous, mostly digital campaigns, social media strategy, the kind of work that disappears the moment you're done with it. My name's Jordan, and I've been in the same cubicle for 6 years. I'm good at what I do, reliable, the type of person who gets asked to stay late when deadlines hit. That's how I knew something was wrong. It started with a Tuesday morning. I got to the office around 8:30 a.m., the usual time. The coffee in the break room was still hot, which meant I was early even by my standards. I sat at my desk, logged in, and started going through emails. Standard stuff, client feedback, team announcements, a joke email from Marcus in accounting that nobody laughed at. I got maybe 45 minutes into work when Janet from HR stopped by. "Morning, Jordan," she said. She was holding a small potted plant, one of those promotional things the company gives out for service anniversaries. 6 years today. Can you believe it? I'd forgotten. Not unusual for me. I'm not sentimental about work milestones. But she seemed genuinely happy about it, so I thanked her, smiled, and she moved on. That part was normal. What wasn't normal came around 2 p.m. I was reviewing a campaign mock-up when I got a message from my manager, Richard. "Hey, got a minute? Conference room B." Nothing urgent in the tone, but I headed over. Richard was there with Janet and someone from the senior leadership team, a woman named Karen. They all looked at me with the same expression, warmth, but with something underneath it. Pity, maybe. "Jordan," Karen said, gesturing for me to sit. "We wanted to talk to you today because it's an important day." "My 6-year anniversary," I said. "Yes," Richard said. "And we've been watching your performance, and frankly, you're underutilized. We'd like to offer you a promotion. Team lead position, decent raise, the full package." I was shocked, genuinely shocked. In 6 years, I'd never been offered anything like that. I'd watched other people get promoted, faster workers, people with connections, but not me. I asked a few basic questions: start date, salary, what the role entailed. They answered everything. It felt real. It felt like the best day I'd had at that company in years. "When would this start?" I asked. "Monday," Karen said. "We'd like you to take the rest of the week to celebrate. Maybe tell people the good news. You've earned it." I left that conference room in a daze. I sent messages to a few friends. My roommate, a colleague I was close to, my sister. Everyone responded with congratulations. I felt good, really good. That night I went out with my roommate and we grabbed drinks. I paid for appetizers to celebrate. I felt like something had finally shifted. I woke up Wednesday morning feeling different, not bad, just off. I couldn't place it. I got ready, went through my routine, and headed to work. Same commute, same parking spot, same break room coffee. When I got to my desk, I noticed something odd. There was a potted plant on my desk. I stared at it for a moment. The same plant Janet had given me yesterday. I figured maybe she'd given me 2 by mistake, or I'd misremembered. I didn't think about it. Around 10 a.m., Janet appeared by my cubicle. "Morning, Jordan," she said. She was holding a potted plant. 6 years today. Can you believe it? I looked at her, then at the plant in her hand, then at the plant on my desk. "Janet, you gave me this yesterday." She tilted her head slightly. "What do you mean, yesterday? Today's your 6-year anniversary, first time we're celebrating it." "No," I said carefully. "You came by yesterday morning. You said 6 years. Gave me this plant." She looked confused, almost concerned. "Jordan, are you feeling okay? Is everything all right?" I didn't know what to say. I showed her the plant on my desk. "You gave me this yesterday." She set her plant down on my desk, next to the other one. "I think you might want to talk to someone. Have you been sleeping okay?" I didn't respond. She left, and I sat there staring at 2 identical plants. Then I checked my emails. Everything from Wednesday was gone. It was Tuesday again, same emails, same timestamps. I checked my messages, the congratulations texts to my friends. I looked them up in my phone. They were there, but dated today, Tuesday. The conversation with my roommate about going out for drinks. In my history, it said Tuesday night. I called him. "Hey," I said. Did we go out last night?" "What?" "No, man. We're going out tonight, remember? You told me to clear my schedule. You got the promotion." I hung up. My hands were shaking. I went back through my files on my computer, the campaign mock-up I'd been reviewing on Tuesday afternoon. It was there, time-stamped this morning. Everything about my calendar, my emails, my work history said that today was Tuesday, October 15th, that yesterday never happened. Around 1:30 p.m., Richard messaged me. "Conference room B." When I got there, Richard, Janet, and Karen were all sitting in the exact same positions. Karen said the exact same thing. "It's your 6-year anniversary," she began, "and we've been watching your performance." I stood up. "I've already heard this." They all looked at me with the same confused expression. Karen said, "What do you mean you've already heard this?" "This happened yesterday, this entire conversation. You offered me the promotion. Janet gave me a plant. I went out with my roommate. This is the second time." Richard leaned back. "Jordan, I think you might be confused. Maybe you should take the rest of the day. You've been working hard." "I'm not confused. I know it's the same day. I know this has happened before." Karen exchanged a look with Richard. "Why don't you go home? Get some rest. We can talk about the promotion next week when you're feeling better." I left work early that day. I drove around for a while, just driving, trying to think. When I got home, my roommate was there. "Hey, you came home early. You ready to celebrate?" "What day is it?" I asked him. "It's Tuesday, obviously." "Why?" "Just make sure tonight happened, okay? Remember everything, please." He looked at me like I was losing it. "Are you having a stroke or something?" That night I barely slept. I kept checking my phone to make sure it didn't reset. I woke up Wednesday. For maybe 30 seconds, I felt relief. Then my alarm went off, and it showed Tuesday on my phone. The news was Tuesday's news. My emails started populating. Tuesday's emails. My roommate texted me, "Clear your schedule tonight. You got the promotion." I didn't go to work. I sat in my apartment and watched it happen. The afternoon passed. Around 1:30 p.m., my manager texted asking where I was. I didn't respond. Around 5 p.m., my roommate showed up at my door, ready to go celebrate. "Where have you been?" he asked. "Janet from HR called me looking for you. She said you left work early yesterday, feeling confused." "How can she call you?" "That was today." "What the hell are you talking about?" I didn't go out. That night I tried to stay awake, thinking maybe if I didn't sleep, the day wouldn't reset. But my eyes got heavier and heavier. No matter what I did, I fought it for hours until I couldn't anymore. I woke up and it was Tuesday again. This has been happening for 3 weeks now. 21 instances of Tuesday, October 15th. Every single day Janet gives me the plant. Every single day, around 1:30 p.m., I get the promotion offer. Every single day, my roommate texts me about celebrating. Every single day, everyone acts like it's the first time. Except me. I've tried everything. I've called the police, but when I explain the situation, they write it down on Tuesday's report forms, and by the next Tuesday, there's no record of it. I've tried calling a therapist, but she keeps asking me the same questions, Tuesday's questions. I've tried leaving the city. I drove 6 hours out, and at midnight, the world just went quiet. The highway was empty. No cars, no lights, just me in the darkness. Then I blinked, and I was waking up in my bed Tuesday morning. I stopped going to work. By the 8th repeat, I gave up pretending it mattered. What's the point in getting promoted on a day that never sticks? On the 15th repeat, I stopped answering messages. On the 20th, I barely got out of bed. Last Tuesday, my third occurrence of Tuesday today, I did something different. I went to my office building on lunch and I rode the elevator to the roof. I stood at the edge and looked down at the street, the cars moving in their Tuesday patterns, and I just stood there. I was up there for maybe 10 minutes. Then someone grabbed my arm. Security had followed me up. They took me to the hospital. The doctor examined me, asked questions in that concerned voice, and suggested I stay overnight for observation. Tonight, they're keeping me in a hospital bed. It's still Tuesday. The same Tuesday. The clock says 11:47 p.m. In 13 minutes, it'll be midnight, and when it turns, I don't know what happens. Maybe I reset at midnight instead of waking up. Maybe Tuesday finally ends. Maybe I'll just keep going until the calendar breaks. What I do know is that in the morning, or when morning comes, or whenever Tuesday decides to happen again, Janet will be standing by my cubicle with a potted plant, and she'll say those exact words. 6 years today. Can you believe it? And I will believe it. I believe it every single time. I'm running out of belief.